your fingers on my self-control. No, I don't mind it, and I don't need no reminding. I could lose it all, but with all I could lose, I'd still let you, for all's fair in love and war.
So now, without further ado, on to the presentations. I'm really proud of September 2020 and the projects they will show you tonight. Our first team tonight is called Brew Canoe, and they have taught themselves React and Bootstrap and build a web application for your homebrew success. So please, team, on to your presentation.
So, Brew Canoe, helping first-timers effortlessly glide down the stream to homebrew success. It's a final project by Richard, Christina, Linus, and Ollie. Brew Canoe is a simple website aimed at people who want to give all-grain beer brewing a go. Unlike other brewing alternatives, Brew Canoe is fun. It completes calculations for you in the background and then presents them to you in an easy-to-follow walkthrough. I'll now pass over to Linus, who's going to give you a demo.
Hi, my name's Linus, and this is a quick demo I recorded yesterday. So the first thing I'd like to point out is you can see the cursor moving around all of the bubbles in the background there, and also this cool logo up in the left corner that Christina designed. Quite proud of that. So we're going to just get right into the app called Brew Canoe. So you click that button there, and you are greeted with 4 different beers here. They are named after the 4 people who made the app. So we're going to pick Ollie's beer here. You can see that we get a little selector here of how many liters of beer you actually wish to make. So you can go down, you can go up, you can enter whatever number you want. But I think we're going to go with 10 liters today. So now we get into the app here. So you have 3 tabs at the top there. Ingredients. You can see some ingredient, the kilograms and the grams of some of the ingredients here, and they actually change automatically depending on how many liters of beer you wish to make. We've got some checkboxes here as well. So this is the first step. On the right-hand side here, you've got a couple of buttons that you can click once you've completed a certain task. And you also have this question mark here. In case you have any further questions on that task, if you require any more information, you can press that as well. And yeah, that's the step 1 here. In the bottom here, we have a previous step and the next step button as well to go between the 2 steps. So we're going to click next step here. Again, we have a little bit of further information here in the question mark there. We also have this progress bar now that automatically fills in depending on which step you are. We also have this timer down here in the right-hand corner with a start and stop button and a reset button. So this is so you don't have to click off the app in order to start your timer. Again, we have the same buttons on the right-hand side here. So we're going to go to the next step. It's very simple, not too much to discuss on step 3 or step 4. Just got the same buttons there on the side. Step 5, we can again see the timer show up there in the bottom right-hand corner. So this is a step that requires a timer. So the timer will show up in any step that actually requires it and won't for any of the other steps. Should you wish to go have a look at Brew Canoe, you can do that at brewcanoe.herokuapp.com, and you can play with the bubbles if you like, or, brew some beer. Reaching the end of the steps here, again, step 8 is very self-explanatory. Step 9 here, now we can see that the progress bar, first of all, is completely filled in. We've got a button there, click that, it says, well done, enjoy your beer. And here, the hydrometer readings. You can go up and down on those, and that will change the percentage of your beer. And yeah, that is essentially Brew Canoe in a nutshell. I will now pass you over to Richard, who's going to talk a little bit about our learning experience.
Thank you, Linus. For this project, we decided to use React, which is an open source JavaScript library for building user interfaces from small isolated pieces of code called components. No one in our team knew anything about how React components or or passing props worked a week last Monday. So we started researching individually and sharing any good resources we found. A problem we had fairly early on in the project was with setting up the testing framework. Despite going through the official documentation and following many online tutorials, we just couldn't get the tests to work at all. Then after a day of frantic Googling, it turned out that a testing utility we were using was not compatible with the current version of React. Once that problem was resolved, we could concentrate on actually building the app. We had a lot of fun deciding on the look of the app and designing the dynamic elements such as the bubbles and the progress bar. I'm now going to pass you on to Christina, who's going to talk about how we work together as a team.
Thank you, Richard. So in the beginning of our project, we decided to set a team goal, so which was so that each team member would have a sense of ownership of the project. So we made use of the extreme programming values such as communication, simplicity, feedback, cohort, and respect. And we combined that with pair programming. And also we set up a daily schedule with stand-ups in the morning and retros in the evenings with check-ins during the day, just to see if we needed some support regarding what we were doing at the moment. And I think even though we faced some difficulties in the beginning, like Richard said, having a general and team goal that everyone agrees with, that made possible for us to accomplish what we're aiming to. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and have a look at brewcanoe.herokuapp.com.
Thank you very much, Brewcanoe. That was a great presentation. I got inspired actually to try some home brewing now after seeing that. So thank you. So now we're gonna move on to the second team tonight. It's a team called EdTech. So they have taught themselves a couple of technologies like React, Express, and Node, and built a process reviews website for students. So that's actually really exciting. Please, Tim, onto your presentation.
Thank you, Audrey. Team EdTech, bear with me. We built a web application designed for students to ease the use of taking process reviews during their course. Essentially what that means is that in the application, students can sign in, book reviews, check metrics and track their progress visually. And the reviewers, on the other hand, can sign in, create available time slots to book, and enter students' reviews, feedback. So onto the presentation, demo. We log in as a student, where you can review the graph, the progress, as well as the previously booked reviews. In this review, we can get an overview and a clear description for each criteria we are rated on, as well as book reviews. In the scenario, there is no available reviews since the reviewer hasn't created any availabilities yet. So we go in the reviewer dashboard, create an available date, slots, go back to being to the student dashboard in order to book that review slot, which is now coming up here, the available reviews. This means this new review wasn't showing up on the charts since the feedback hasn't been populated by the reviewer yet. We go back to the reviewer dashboard and get a list of all of the reviews that still need feedback. So we go and enter those. Loved it. TDD was great. John as well, pretty good. Decent. Excellent. I would just go through that process to show you how it actually gets displayed. On the other hand, Oh, and now that's disappeared because the review has been fully completed. So we go back on the student dashboard, and we can track where we can see the latest progress as well as the feedback for that specific review. And that's it for me. On to Oli, who is going to take us through the next slide.
Thanks, Sav. Having worked primarily in Ruby throughout the course, we really wanted to extend our JavaScript knowledge. So we chose both a front end and back end that were heavily JavaScript. So that's Express.js server that handled the integration with the database and sent information to our front end React website. And to not overcomplicate it for ourselves, we used a PostgreSQL database that we'd worked with before, and also deployed it via Heroku, which we'd also used before. Ironically, obviously, deployment via something we already knew ended up having the most difficult bit, but that is how it tends to go. I'm going to pass on to Johnny now.
Thanks, Ollie. So I'm going to talk about how we worked as a team. So in the beginning, we, as the group, discussed what objectives we wanted to achieve during the project. And yeah, so we wanted to build a functioning app and also learn the new stack. So we agreed in the beginning that we'd spend a few days learning this new tech stack and following tutorials. And once we got the hang of that and had a basic understanding of both React and Express, we decided to move on to some planning, and we had a Miro board up, where we could just draw up our ideas and just add to it whenever we had a new idea. So each day we would split into pairs and accomplish something different. Each pair would do like front end, or another pair would do back end stuff. But during the day, we would also sync up with each other and whenever necessary. So we had a very easygoing environment with ourselves. We did daily stand-ups to merge code in the morning, and we tried to also have as many retros as we could at the end of the day, just to see how we're coping mentally. So yeah, that's my bit done. I'll pass it over to Courtney now.
Thanks, Johnny. I'm going to talk about the challenges we faced. First week was literally like all our energies got sucked out. We were struggling a bit with the back end, with the authentication libraries. We were using passports. So that's like using the cookies to keep the session with the user. Ollie went on a lone soldier, and with a little bit of assistance, he came back with the glory. We also didn't know about React as much. So getting familiar with the syntax and the logic, and going through each, I guess, tutorial and stat flows, a lot of stat flows to actually overcome React issues. And lastly, I'll say the deployment, merging the connecting the React and the Express to the Heroku. That was a bit of trouble, but I'm not gonna lie, Maestro Zav, he came through with also assistance with Ollie, myself, and Johnny. Also nice to have, I think in the future we would like to have like a reviewer upload video, so a reviewer can give feedback to the actual user, and an email being sent out, and also a profile pic to make it user friendly. And that's it for EdTech.
Great team, great job. Thank you for your presentation. I'm really proud of how long you've come since the beginning of the bootcamp with using all these technologies and learning them from the beginning. I'm really proud. So yeah, now as a brief comment. So if you're interested in studying with makers, you can actually submit your questions now to us, the makers team, in the chat, and we will be answering them after the remaining two student demos that we have. So we're moving now to our third team tonight that is called Signpost. And they have taught themselves quite a few technologies as well, Swift, Xcode, ARKit, and Firebase, and built an iOS discovery app for mobile devices using AR technology. So please, team, on to your presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm here to introduce the Signpost team made up of Victoria, Connor, Lewis, and myself. Over the past 2 weeks, we've designed and built an iOS app that uses augmented reality to display digital entities in the real world through your device's camera. The app started as a really simple concept. If you're walking along and you pass a nice view, you might want to let someone know exactly where that is. You can't add that as a page on Facebook. You can't put a post on TripAdvisor about it. It's just some point in the world. And that's where our app really comes in. So just by opening it up, writing a short bit of text, and then placing it in the real world just through a tap on your screen, you've created a digital entity that anyone else with the app can find and then see. Put simply, this app connects you to a world only visible through your phone camera lens, with each object being full of useful information. So the digital markers that users can place can be used to say absolutely anything. If it's a great view that you want to note, that's awesome. But if you've also just had like a really good kebab from somewhere, then a signpost next to that shop works just as well as point people in the right direction. It was incredibly gratifying watching the app go from a sketch of the UI to a wireframe like this, and then to the final product that actually runs on all of our phones and looks great. And all of this in less than 2 weeks. So we've got a short video which showcases some of the app's features that we'd like to play for you now. Signs have been around for a long time. Right now, they're being used to keep us 2 meters apart, but mostly they've been used to advertise to us on the tube and on the street. But they've started to get a bit cluttered and a bit bright. So we realised there's probably a better way to do this. What if you tapped an app on your phone and it opened up and it scanned your environment, and in that environment you could say, enter some text. And after you'd entered that text, you could place it anywhere. And I mean anywhere, like throughout your building or on a path. And then what if you wanted to go back somewhere and see a sign that someone else had placed in the exact same place, just like this? But how do you find these signs? Well, you can open up the Explore tab and see every sign in the world, and I mean everywhere in the world. Or you can just open up your own profile page and see just your signs to remind yourself of where you've been. This is just a tiny look at what our new app Signposts can do, and it's much more impressive when you hold it in your hands. So visit our GitHub and download it to your device. Happy graduation. Great. So now I'm going to hand over to Lewis to talk about our learning process.
Thanks, Sam. So Swift is the programming language that Apple mobile apps are written in, and it was a completely new language for all of us to learn. So we began by repeating some of the early challenges from the Makers pre-course, which enabled us to relate back to something that was familiar to us all. That was the first step in making a daunting task more approachable. From there, we followed a tutorial to create our first project in augmented reality, just a cube floating in the middle of the room. But seeing that replicated on our phones, being able to walk around or underneath a 3D object that we had just created was the first of many wow moments for us in the project. Our learning process from that point onwards was a mixture of curiosity, experimentation, and incremental steps and online tutorials. So we've got our floating cube. Can we now add some text to it? We didn't know the answer, but we would go away and do some research amongst ourselves. Often the answer that came back was yes, we can, but. And so Victoria can now talk about some of the challenges we faced.
Unsurprisingly, we did face quite a variety of challenges. Finding the best strategy and structure to coding while also learning a completely new language has been quite challenging. Getting used to a completely new integrated development environment, Xcode, that none of us have used before, choosing the best framework to translate our ideas into a functioning code, and of course, time pressure that forced us to compromise on features that we were so sad on having in our app. You're probably waiting for us to give you a shortcut that solves all of the mentioned problems and difficulties. All I'll say is that there was a lot of Googling, Stack Overflow, YouTube, and simply trying, failing, and trying again. And now I'm going to pass on to Connor that will talk about our behaviors and skills.
So a key part of this project for us was planning and our attitude towards planning. So we used the Trello board, like you can see in the screenshot, to keep track of each task. And this also enabled us to break down each task into more manageable chunks. We also allocated a section of that Trello board to share any good resources we found so that we were able to ensure knowledge sharing throughout the team. We had daily stand-ups and retros to ensure we were all on the same page. And at the stand-ups, we ensured that we allocated time to talk about things other than the project. And this gave us a positive start to the day before focusing on the tasks and challenges that inevitably were waiting for us. But in the end, we overcame all these challenges. We started with a concept and have taken this all the way through to a full-blown iOS app, and we've remained on speaking terms throughout that process. So we're excited to see where this app can go next. So if you want to check it out, head over to our GitHub page where you can find out all the information. Thank you.
Great, team. Thank you for your presentation. I'm pretty sure all of us are looking forward for this app to be on the App Store. So if you're planning to do that, please, we'd love to hear from that, actually. And we're going to move now to our final project tonight. It's a project called Subscript, built by the Go team. And they taught themselves quite a few technologies as well, Go and Golang, SendGrid, Blade, and some cool libraries as well, and built Subscript to help manage your subscription without hassle. So please, Tim, on to your presentation.
All right, good evening, everyone. So we're the Go team, and we built the product called Subscript. We help our users stay on top of their subscriptions. So just to introduce the team, so we got myself, Farhan, we have Charlotte, and we have Veronica. I'll explain what these cute little avatars are towards the end. But just a quick brief of what we'll cover. So we'll go over why we chose this project, what our product does, a brief product demo for you folks as well, and we'll cover our learning process so you guys understand how we got here. First things first, so how do we go about choosing the project? So we're looking at industry trends, and we wanted to pick a technology stack that's quite in demand at the moment, and especially as all three of us are quite keen on learning back-end technologies, we were looking into what suits that. We also wanted to showcase our ability to learn. So we wanted to pick a tech stack that we haven't worked with yet in the bootcamp. And we also wanted something that was challenging, that would stretch us, and we knew would be quite difficult to do. So we landed on Go as our programming language of choice to build our backend for our application. It's a pretty new language. It's been around for 10 years, which is pretty new in the development community. And it's really good for building backend services. So this was the challenge that we wanted to take. But what about the actual project itself, the product? So we all identified a problem that we were having, where we don't want customers losing money on unwanted subscriptions, because that's something that all three of us were talking about. We sign up to lots of free trials, we forget to cancel them, we get charged for them. So that's where the idea for this project came in. So that's where we wanted to build something that helps you track your subscriptions, because again, you can have many and you may forget to cancel. So we wanted to also have some form of reminder mechanism to tackle that. And that's where the Subscript web app proof of concept came in. It's a subscription manager with 3 key features. So first, we're able to help you track individual subscriptions. So you're able to add and delete subscriptions. We also send you calendar reminders via email. So this is done using the SendGrid API. So when you've added a subscription in, you can ask to get sent a reminder, and you get sent a calendar invite via email to remind you to cancel your subscription if you so desire. And then the third feature, which we're quite proud of, we call Smart Subscription, which is we're able to add subscriptions that show up on your bank account through the Open Banking API via third-party provider Applied. So we're able to read in your transactions, check what's a subscription, and add it into the subscription manager. Now I'll pass over to Veronica, who will do a brief product demo.
Thanks, Farhan. Cool. So here's a quick demo of Subscript. I start by entering my name and email, and I'm Gary Gopher for today. So as you can see here, I don't have any subscriptions yet. So there are 2 ways to add them. The first is just by entering it manually. So I'm just putting in my Netflix, which is due on the 2nd of December. And that's saved there. So the second way is to load subscriptions from my bank transactions. So as Farhan mentioned, Subscript uses open banking APIs to pull in my account transactions on demand directly from my bank. So this is just a list of transactions now that have been retrieved from my bank into Subscript. So I'm going to go ahead now and load in the subscriptions from my bank account, and I'll pick Monzo because it's my main one. So in the background, Subscript's calling out to my bank and getting my transaction history, then sorting through each of those transactions to try and automatically identify which ones are subscriptions. So you can see it's created 4 here for me automatically, which is pretty cool. I've noticed I'm still paying for my climbing subscription. I'm not sure if I'm getting value from it in lockdown, so I want to get a reminder before the next payment's due, so that I don't, so I can cancel it before I get charged, essentially. I've just noticed my email's incorrect, so I'm going to update that there, and that is stored for future use as well. So I'm going to send a reminder, which has now been emailed out to me. So I'm just going to check Gary's emails. You can see there's a nice little email here from Team Subscript. So it's about my climbing subscription, and there's a calendar attachment. So I'm just going to open that one. And I now have a calendar reminder, which is 5 days before my climbing payment's due to be taken out. So I won't get charged if I want to cancel it. I've also noticed I've got this exorbitant KFC subscription, which I don't want anymore. So I'm going to cancel that with KFC and then just delete it via Subscript. And that's it in a nutshell. So I'm going to hand over now to Charlotte to talk about our learning process.
Thanks. Learning a new language is hard, but over the past 12 weeks, we have discovered how to apply the skills and knowledge we have gained from learning other languages into new ones, even when they differ in many ways. We have been able to translate the logic and methods that we use in Ruby and JavaScript, the languages taught by makers, into Go by following the same processes that we did at the start of the course, either by reading the official documentation for the language, reading blogs, watching videos, or even reaching out to other developers in the Go community. We were able to go from little to no Go code experience into building the application that we just demonstrated to you. As a team, we understood the importance of giving ourselves the time and space to get to grips with the language before diving into building Subscript. The first 2 days of the project, we utilised resources provided by the Go community, such as Learn Go with Tess, to build our knowledge and understanding. But even dedicating this time to understanding the Go language better, we encountered issues that we had not dealt with before. The initial "what on earth is going on here" panic was soon replaced with the development processes we had learned during the course, allowing us to approach the problem systematically and unstick ourselves quickly and effectively. As a group of 3, we weren't able to follow a typical pair programming scenario where 2 developers work together on the same problem, with one writing code and the other guiding and observing. For the first week, we worked in a 2-1 configuration, but in the second week, as we became more comfortable and confident in our Go abilities, we worked individually. In both cases, we were all present on the same video call to allow anyone to get eyes on their code when they needed help or a second opinion. We worked in 2-day sprints, starting each day with a stand-up meeting and each evening with a retro. A smaller group, we had to make decisions about what features we could reasonably achieve in the timeframe we had. So we made decisions about what features to include, and we decided that the open banking API is something that we would want to use. To manage our project, we used GitHub projects and to divide the workload, and also to keep track on who was working on what and whether goals had been achieved. Thank you for watching our demo, and the Gopher avatar is the official mascot of the Go language.
Amazing. Great job, team. I'm really, really looking forward to using this one as well. I'm sure many of us are. This is really helpful to manage your subscriptions, way better than just writing a few notes and the due date. So yeah, great job. So yeah, thank you, September 2020. Your projects have been, all of them, amazing. And everyone who joined us today for the demo day, thank you as well for being with us. It was really, really, really inspiring how much you learned since you started at Makers. So now I'm gonna hand over to Haley, and we're gonna start with the Q&A.
Cool, thanks very much, Josue, and well done to September 2020 cohort. So if you've stayed on with us, then hopefully it means that you're interested in some more information about possibly joining Makers. So what we're going to do in this section of the call is meet a couple of our staff and talk about the course, how we can help you, and yeah, hopefully provide you the information you need to decide if we're the right bootcamp for you. So I'll introduce Rachel first of all, who's joined us on the call. Rach, could you just tell us a little bit about what you do here at Makers, please?
Yes. Hi everyone. I'm Rachel. I work as a part of the admissions team. So yeah, if anybody is interested in applying, I'll be looking at your applications and helping you to sort of prepare for a pairing session with us. As part of the application process, we do ask you to work through some coding resources for you to see if you enjoy coding and also to prepare you for the sort of start of the course.
Cool, thank you so much. So I can see we've already got quite a lot of questions come in, so thank you to everyone who's submitted those so far. If you see a question that you also want to ask, you can click the thumbs up kind of emoji thing, just so we answer the most important ones first. Or obviously if you've got another question, then please just submit it in the Q&A panel. Cool, so I'm just going to go from the top and work through, if that works for everybody. So first of all, we've got are most learners on the course recent graduates or career movers? Thank you to whoever asked this question. So, so yeah, I'd say that the majority of people who come to Makers are career changers. We do have kind of like a smattering of people who come straight out of university, but yeah, in general, the focus is career change. So if you are thinking of joining the course and you've not come from a technical background, you definitely won't be the only person in that situation. Obviously, Rachel, you see kind of all of the applications that come in. Do you have any examples of like the kind of like career backgrounds we see coming in?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, like you said, we do have some graduates that have perhaps gone to university and actually realised that they want to move into something more coding, so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, most people have never coded before. They've perhaps heard about coding and maybe done a bit of research, but their careers could be anything from like a musician, you know, bar manager, lawyer, just anything really. We have people coming from sort of all backgrounds. So yeah, don't sort of like limit yourself. If you want to chat to us more about sort of your background and how that might help you as a developer, I'm sure you'll have picked up skills that will sort of help you going forward as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it actually, that people don't realize that so many things from their career background, like no matter what it is, can be really, really helpful in web development and, you know, just going into tech. So yeah, you can always call us to kind of find out a bit more about that. Cool, so the next question, Josue, hopefully you'll be able to help with this one. It's from Jack asking, how many students are in each cohort? And he's also asking a bit more of a detailed breakdown of the course itself. They know that the first half of the course is kind of pair programming and learning more about Java and Ruby, and the second half is more about engineering projects. Do you have a bit more of a breakdown of the structure of the day and how much is lecture versus actual programming?
Yeah, thank you, definitely. I mean, the cohorts are around 20, like the 20 people, around something like that, 25, 24. It could vary depending from one cohort to another. So basically, the structure of the course and the week, it's eminently like practical. So there's actually workshops that happen in the weeks during the course, and that actually show them like some skills that are important for that week, and they can work on that. But they're gonna work on projects, so they have a challenge during the week, and there's a set of tasks for them to complete. They're pair programming on these tasks. We start with Ruby until week 5 or so. Then we have like 2 weeks of JavaScript, and then they work mainly in projects with like 4, 5 students, and they start like more like using stand-ups. They start having retros, and they getting ready for the final projects as well to graduate. And it's really similar in week like 8 and 9. They do something very similar to the last 2 weeks of the course. So they get an experience beforehand before working on this, and then they're pretty much free to decide which technologies they want to use for the final project. But the rest of the course is pretty focused on learning Ruby, JavaScript, but more than learning the language itself, we teach processes. So basically, we actually encourage them to learn concepts and processes that will be helpful for them during the whole career. And that's what they learn and work on during the course.
Cool, thank you, Josue. Yeah, like the whole aim of the Makers course, as you know, we've said, is super practical. It's preparing you to kind of dive into a development job. So yeah, you're coding, doing like practical, a lot of practical elements from day one. So hopefully that answered your question. Cool. So the next one is from Julie, who's asking, firstly, well done to the students. I think this is aimed more for the students, actually. How much coding? Okay. So, sorry that the students aren't here to answer the question, but hopefully we'll be able to kind of still give you some context of the question. So she's asking how much coding knowledge do they have before the course? How do they find doing the bootcamp remotely? And how do they find the structure of the course? One thing I will say actually is in 2 weeks' time, if you want to hear the students' kind of perspective themselves, we've got a Q&A event, which is, it's a panel of all of our alumni, or a couple of our alumni, who have done the remote course. So I'll drop the link in the chat in just a second. So if you do want to hear that, then please go along to that. In terms of how much coding experience people have before Makers, I guess as we touched on before, most people are completely new to it. So we recommend a couple of online resources. Code Academy and Code Wars are the main ones. And most people generally just start from that. But I think that's probably as much as I can offer on that question. But like I said, I'll drop you the link for the other event if you're interested. Cool. So next one, Josue, is probably for you. They're asking, how do we agree set times for stand-up and retros through the course? And are there kind of expected core hours so that everyone is synced?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So it varies from week to week. So basically the way it normally works until they start working in projects with 4 or 5 students working on projects on these weeks I mentioned before, actually. The way it works normally, they will work on a challenge, they're pairing, changing pairs every day during the week. And then we have a retro for the whole cohort actually on Friday normally for them to reflect, for everyone involved to reflect on how the week went, what could have been improved, and what was the main takeaway, something positive out of that week. And stand-ups, that's something that they normally do as part of working on these projects when they start working more in projects that are resemble to the structure that you've seen today in the final project, what they've been talking about. They normally do stand-ups among themselves. We have occasionally check-ins as well with them to make sure everything is going well, that anything that they want to share with us is also heard. But there's ongoing communication during the whole day, and we're quite open and have a channel for the devs as well to bring their questions in, and we're always there in the mornings to check for them normally, and they're more focused in working in these challenges in the afternoon. Yeah, this is kind of the structure and how it normally works.
Cool, thank you so much for your answer. Cool, so the next question we have is from Emily asking what the pre-course involves. For those of you who don't know, we have 4 weeks of prep before entering to the main 12 weeks of the course. Rachel, would you be able to explain a little bit more about that, please?
Yep, I can do. Yes, so it's the first 4 weeks of the course before you start the full-time element. It is part-time, so 20 to 25 hours worth of work per week you'll need to dedicate to doing the pre-course materials. The materials are sort of intended to be done independently, like you're given access to the resources on day 1 of your pre-course, but you'll have sort of You'll be added to Slack, which is the communication channel that we use with everybody else that is doing the pre-course at the same time as you. So you do have your peers for support, and you can ask each other questions. You can arrange to pair program on the challenges together. You can definitely do that. But it's making sure, because everybody comes from slightly different backgrounds, that on day one of the full-time part of the course, everybody is up to speed with sort of certain things. So you work through 10 chapters, and at the end of 10 chapters, or at the end of each chapter, you do have to commit some code. The coaches will be able to see sort of the tests that you're running or passing, and if you're failing them, sort of why. And you can also, the coaches are available between sort of like 9:30 and 12, so you can message them and you can get some support during the pre-course as well. So yeah, that's, I guess, a brief outline of the pre-course.
Cool, thanks Rachel. Hopefully that answers your question, Emily. And the next one's from Emily as well, asking, why we focus on JavaScript and Ruby. This is one that comes up, I think, pretty much every demo day we do. Josue, I mean, take it away.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good question, actually. That's a good question. So Ruby is considered a very friendly language for beginners that just start coding. It resembles a lot to plain English, the way you would write English. So we think it's a very good way to get actually an introduction to programming and start learning the fundamentals without focusing too much on the signal, but more on the syntax, but on the concept and the processes. So it's a very friendly language in terms of that. And also JavaScript, well, JavaScript, you want to basically, is everywhere. I mean, JavaScript is a really important language as well. And we also, as part of the course, advanced for working on services to also working in the front end as well, and then you unifying everything and making sure all the pieces are assembled. And JavaScript is fundamental to that. I mean, it's a language that is really important. It's pretty much taught everywhere. So Ruby, you could consider, there's other languages, but JavaScript is there's, I think, no question when it comes to including JavaScript.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask you a follow up on that one as well, because I guess the reason that a lot of people ask this, I think, is obviously in the projects today, we've seen people using kind of jazzy new languages and Python and things, which might be a little bit, it might seem like the more popular languages at the moment. Would you be able to kind of share a bit more about the kind of language agnostic idea, and maybe kind of explain that to people who might be new to the concept?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we try to make the course language agnostic. There's a lot of projects during the course. You can actually work on just your own projects with getting the ideas and the concepts that you use during the course. Even though you're working in Ruby and JavaScript, you're encouraged as well to try your own things in your own language. So we don't really only focus on these languages. I mean, the course and the material is pretty much written using these languages, but you see in the final project, there's other languages that are popular and that are chosen. So once you see the developers have developed developers as the students, that's what I mean, have developed the confidence to be able to know and believe they can build whatever, they are making choices of, I want to use these languages instead of the ones that are taught in the course, and that's totally normal. So it's a process, and the languages are more a tool to achieving something rather than something that is imposed, or we need to use this or this. So I don't know if that answers the question more or less.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Cool, lovely stuff. So the next, actually the next two questions are kind of more on the job hunting side. So we may as well combine them. So they're asking, will there be enough jobs? Do most makers grads get employed? What's the process of getting employed? And a couple of others, which I'll hopefully try to be able to combine into one answer. So yeah, obviously during kind of while the pandemic has been going on, when it first happened, I think we obviously noticed a real massive drop in jobs. It is the complete honest answer. I think companies were kind of taking a little while to understandably figure out kind of what was going on, and so everything kind of paused at that point. Now that we're kind of I don't even know how many months, like 8 something months into it. From our perspective, from the jobs that we see coming in, it's definitely picking back up pretty well. I think a lot of places have adjusted to it. So now we are seeing student hiring getting picked up, and companies are approaching us more. So I don't know, I couldn't give you an accurate answer on how it is now compared to, you know, how it is normally. But yeah, it does look like things are kind of like getting back to where we normally expect. In terms of what the process is for being employed at the end of the course, so we have a whole careers team who are responsible for helping you find a job. So we have careers coaches. They kind of work on the skills for employment. So how to prepare for a tech interview, because it might be different from, you know, another industry. Getting your CV ready, just all of those kind of like skills-based things. The kind of other half of that is our partnerships team, and they're responsible for actually reaching out to companies and telling them about makers and bringing in jobs that they offer to the students. So I guess the kind of way that I normally explain it is their job is kind of doing the first part of the interview process for you. So explaining what you've learned, explaining the course, and then, you know, it makes it a little bit easier that way. I think there's in our FAQ section on our website, if you want to read more about that, there's some more details there. So definitely have a look. What else is it being asked here? So do we assist with employment? Yes. And oh, this is an interesting one. So they're also asking if there's any noticeable differences between online learners versus our on-site learners. And I'm going to ask Josue, you know, if you could explain maybe that, but also how the kind of how the course is like changed, or has it changed while it's been online?
Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you. So short answer would be it hasn't changed that much, and it's actually we're a company that it's, for us it's very possible to work remotely. Even though when we were on site, when the company was on site, a lot of the interaction took place remotely. So Slack is like the central place for everyone to communicate. So you could still, the way it worked before, for example, students would approach coaches in the morning when they had any questions in one of the floors in the building. So now that takes place in a channel, but the communication is still effective. So we're all there in Slack to be able to help each other, and it's still the main tool that we use, and that hasn't changed at all. So I would say that there's really not been any like major like differences in terms of being on site or being remote, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. And the last question as part of that was, where do most makers grads end up being employed? It's a real broad range, to be honest with you. We have a lot of like larger corporates like Deloitte Digital. They hire loads of makers grads. Other kind of bigger companies like that would be kind of Tesco. We've had people at Santander, Financial Times, all of those different things. But there's also a big group of smaller startups. Rachel, are there any that kind of spring to mind?
Yeah, I've just had a look whilst you guys were chatting, just to give a few of the most recent ones. So yeah, Gusto, Just Eat, Mumsnet. We've had quite a few people getting hired at Deloitte, like I've just said. So yeah, you know, we have big companies, but also smaller companies if you are interested in more of that startup feel. I think, yeah, there's a variety, and yeah, don't limit yourself to like a specific type of company. Like, do come to makers like open-minded, because I think some people change their mind like a few times during the course, and I think it's really important to have like a supportive environment in those first few years so that you can like carry on your learning. So I think that's something that people should sort of focus on when they're looking for a job as well, making sure that you've got a company that's going to support your learning as well.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. I think like I think as people learn more about development, often people think like, oh, maybe, you know, I want to be a front-end developer, and then they learn about like the ins and outs of back-end, but like actually completely switch. So, but I mean, our teams, our careers team will talk to you about kind of what your preferences are as well, and kind of like guide you on like what's realistic, what's available, all that kind of thing. Which kind of links to our next question. So they're asking if someone wants to do specifically back-end development, is our course more full stack or front-end focused? Josue, would you be able to help with that, please?
Definitely, and that's a great question, and not an uncommon one. So yeah, I would say it's still really relevant. So you actually will work on learning the basics of object-oriented programming. You will work with Ruby as a backend language as well. You will work in actually getting your skills that you need in different areas to be fully like efficient in working as a backend engineer. Also, you will see some front end, but this is still relevant. I think it's good to have like some general idea about the different areas, and then you can decide to specialize in some of these areas. But I mean, the course offers actually a very good like, let's say like a bag of concepts that you can apply to many different things, and it's more about the way that you develop them and you grow these skills using a holistic approach. But also definitely something that you will benefit from still if you only want to do backend.
Cool, thank you so much. Lovely. So the next question is from Ian asking, so what are the criteria for progressing from the pre-course to the main course? Rachel?
Yeah, I think I talked about it a little bit, but those 10 chapters that you have, that you're sort of given to work through, there's no test at the end of the pre-course, so it's more about have you had time to work through those chapters. So yeah, most people do. If you haven't had chance to work through them, this is when probably a discussion between the coaches and yourself would happen, and sort of decide going forward what should happen, whether you need to do the pre-course again, for example, or yeah, what the options are. This doesn't happen very often, I wouldn't say. I guess that's why we have the pairing session at the start, which is your sort of interview to join us. You should be ready to do the pre-course. But yeah, I think it's just, have you managed to sort of complete the work in the 4 weeks?
Cool, thank you, Rachel. Awesome. So the next question from Jack is asking, he's heard that there's far more demand for software developers than there is supply. Is that still true? Yes, is the short answer. I think like, even though things are kind of like, you know, people are still kind of figuring out what's going on with COVID and all that kind of things at the moment. That's, I can say completely confidently, this is just a kind of temporary thing. One of our head of training, Kay, kind of previously spoke about this, and she was saying that, you know, every company now is a tech company. So places that were just like shops or whatever, like everyone's got a website or an app or whatever. So it's not just companies that are specifically about making software. Everyone is involved in it in some way or another. So yes, demand is still growing. And yeah, like I say, things are kind of getting more towards normal in terms of the jobs we're seeing as well. So yeah, fingers crossed it finishes that soon. Cool, so next question is from Liz. Rachel, I think you would be the best one for this one. She's asking, can you explain a bit more about the pair programming session and how to prepare for it?
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about a couple of resources. So there's a course on Code Academy called Learn Ruby. So that is one of the things that we ask you to have a look through and work through that as a course. That's going to give you like a basic overview of Ruby as a language, getting you more familiar with the syntax and yeah, how to use Ruby to do some code. We then ask you to look at Code Wars, which is an online platform where you can practice different coding challenges, which are called katas, and you can filter for like languages. So if you are preparing for makers, we ask you to filter for Ruby. And to look at the level 8 katas on there, so you can filter as well. As you get closer to 1, they're more difficult, so definitely filter the katas. And that's where you put your hopefully new Ruby knowledge into practice. Those are the 2 resources that are going to prepare you for the pairing session. Those resources might take you 2 or 3 weeks to work through. So I guess something to factor in if you are thinking about joining us soon is that there is a couple of weeks work to sort of get prepared for the pairing session. And then the pairing session itself is 4 to 5 small Ruby challenges that we get you to work through. So we want to see you, put your coding skills sort of like into practice, see how you deal with error messages, how you communicate. That all gives us a good indication of whether you're ready to join us or whether we can give you some feedback and offer you a second pairing session to sort of, come back and code in, and hopefully you'll then be. But yeah, I think, Hayley, you should be able to follow up with the resources if people, didn't manage to sort of note them down, the Code Academy and the Code Wars. But yeah, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to chat more about the pairing session and the application process.
Cool, thanks, Rachel. I'm going to ask the next question that's just come through from Jack as well, just because it's kind of related to application. They're asking, he's thinking of applying to the March cohort with the pre-course starting in February. When's the deadline for applying?
So we don't as such have deadlines, just because spaces fill on like a first come first served basis. So if somebody sort of applies and passes their pairing session and pays tomorrow, for example, to start in February, they're going to have secured a spot on February. I would say you could still be applying for that one in January, but I would have maybe started some of the Ruby resources, so it's not sort of too last minute. So yeah, I think if you're interested in February, you could be applying from now onwards until the end of the first week in January. You probably don't want to be leaving it too much after that to apply for February 1, because it does start right at the beginning of February 1st. I think that pre-course starts.
Thanks, Rachel. Cool. So next question is from Joseph, asking, in future, would you expect more coding jobs to be remote or office-based? Josue, I'm going to see if you can help with that one.
Yeah, I can take that one. Thank you, Joseph, for the question. Yeah. So there are more and more companies now opening to fully remote, actually. Some of them are adopting a hybrid of remote part of the week and in the office part of the week. So that's actually, there's more and more companies realizing that actually this is an industry that can be a very good candidate to be done remotely, like fully remotely. And there's many companies that I've seen like adopting that. Like Facebook has been actually adopting that. There is also GitLab. There's so many companies out there that are actually offering now like fully remote options to their employees, and that's been something like has been like happening after the whole pandemic like started, and they're considering their options right now. And we can expect, I would say, to see very confidently that, yeah, there is something that is gonna be on the rise, like fully remote opportunities.
Cool, thank you. And I guess just to add to that, the vast majority of developers, like our students who have graduated, during the pandemic, yeah, I'd say the vast majority, if not all of them, have started their jobs remotely. So I think it's also something that perhaps companies were like, a bit more unsure of previously, but like where everyone's now like literally been forced to do it, I think a lot of companies are more open to it and understand that, you can be a bit more flexible with things. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, it seems like after this whole thing has happened, like there will probably be a shift in people's attitudes to remote working. Cool. So the next question is asking what the lifestyle of a developer looks like once employed, which I think is probably something that can vary quite a lot. I mean, Josue, from you were a developer before being a coach with us. They're also asking about kind of, did you work weekends or long hours? Could you give us kind of like a glance of what that was like?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So from my own experience, that was not something usual that would happen. You normally don't work during the weekends. It depends on the kind of company that you're working at as well. You may be on duty sometimes, and you may need to work during the weekend, but it's not the usual. So I wouldn't say it's normally a work in the office like from Monday to Friday, but it may happen sometime. I mean, in my case, I was paid for overtime. Normally, it depends on the company how it happens. Basically, just talking about my previous experience before joining Makers as a developer. So I was as well part of the bootcamp as a student. Then I joined a company as a software engineer, and then I rejoined Makers now as a technical coach. So just from my own experience, that's what I can say. But also, I have like many friends that work in the industry, and it's not something common, I would say.
Cool, thanks so much. Lovely. So the next question is asking, what's the difference between Makers and Coursera or other kind of online courses? Which is, yeah, that's definitely something that we get asked a lot. I mean, from my perspective, a lot of it is about you personally as a learner, and I think it'd be good to probably hear from both of you guys as well to hear what you think as well. But Makers provides, you know, a structure and a community to kind of learn alongside, keep accountable. Also, you know that through going through our application process and all those things, that you've kind of already had a vote of confidence of someone saying, yes, you do have the skills to do this, you do have the ability. We wouldn't let you onto the course if you know, like Rachel's team didn't think that you were at the mark. And so I think from the get-go, you're kind of put into a situation where it's kind of building you up to succeed. And I mean, the experience from our coaches, you know, everyone who is a coach at Makers has also come from industry. So they've got experience as software developers as well as people who kind of teach. So it's not that they're kind of detracted from the content. They've been used to, you know, having to learn new things and learn new technologies and kind of keep up. So, oops, goodness me, you're in an environment where you're learning from people who have kind of like been there and done that, which I would say online, you know, there's a lot more on you to just kind of like power through. Rachel, is there anything else that you maybe want to add there? Because I'm guessing people probably ask this a lot at the application stage.
Yeah, I'd say you've covered like loads of the main points that you can learn a lot online, and there are so many good online resources. But I think most often people have got to a point where they feel, yeah, a little bit unmotivated. Maybe the content isn't that real life and they actually want to be working as part of a team. And because working on your own, I guess, is not similar to what you'll be doing as part of a team. As a software engineer, you're going to be working with other people, collaborating, and that's what Makers can offer you, like a chance to collaborate with others, learn with others, but also code, yeah, with other people in an environment that's sort of like similar to hopefully your first role as a developer. Yeah, so I think it gives you that aspect of it, which is probably lacking a bit from just an online course where you're just maybe following content, which, yeah, and it can be quite hard to motivate. So I think having that community and accountability, like you said, is another sort of like good thing to do, a boot camp, for example.
Yeah, so just to add a note on that, I completely agree. There's also something that is sometimes overlooked. So the fact that actually studying at Makers is not only about growing your technical skills, it's also about growing your personal skills and your soft skills. These skills are as valued as the technical skill in many, many companies from my own experience. And it's something that is maybe more difficult for you to learn from your own house, just watching courses on Coursera or any other platform. Is that something that they not necessarily like teach you, or you know that aware that is something really important in the industry nowadays. So that's something that is also covered at Makers and is more and more important these days when working as part of a team in companies. So I believe that's also one of the factors that like differentiate doing a bootcamp from like learning from your own house, watching courses and doing your projects.
Cool, thank you both. So the next one is asking about our scholarships. So if any of you follow our blog, we announced last week that we're launching a new range of scholarships. There's a couple of different programs available. I'll post the main blog post with the information in the chat in just a second. Yeah, so basically these, they're aimed at supporting different underrepresented groups in tech. So at the moment we've partnered with a group called Women Who Code and another one with a group called Code Bar, and there's a couple of other bits and pieces being announced shortly. Yeah, basically the full details are kind of on the blog post, but essentially it's offering like extra support to people who are members of those groups. So you do need to be part of Code Bar or Women Who Code to be eligible. However, that you can, you know, sign up and then straight away you'll be eligible if you're part of that group. So yeah, I'll share the details with those now, but we're going to be running like a couple of different programs across next year, aiming to support all kind of different underrepresented groups in tech. So if it's something you're interested in, or if you are part of a group that's maybe not included in one of our scholarships, do please message us, because we're looking for kind of like more and more people to work with. So yeah, it's quite exciting actually. So yeah, I'll drop you the blog post in just a second. The next one is back on the pre-course. So you mentioned earlier that it was you need to cover the 10 chapters. Is there a certain standard or quality in the 10 chapters that needs to be completed? That's really a good question actually. Or do you just kind of progress? Rachel, what kind of feedback do you get on it?
I would say, so I don't sort of get involved once you're on the pre-course, but the coaches sort of do have a look at the code that you are writing. So I guess if there was anything that was concerning the coaches, I think that they would reach out to you and perhaps maybe help you with your approach with the coding. I would say with the pre-course as well, you shouldn't use it as like a tick box exercise, like, oh, I did the chapters, that means I'm ready for the course. You really should spend time working on the chapters, understanding them, not just trying to complete the test at the end. You should be working through it sort of like step by step and using it as part of your learning. It is part of the course, even though it's called the pre-course, it's still really important that you understand what you're doing. So yeah, I would say that there is some level that you need to sort of achieve. But yeah, I don't really sort of get involved at that point. Josue, I don't know how much experience you have with the pre-course yet.
Yeah, so yeah, actually I'm starting with the pre-course this week, but basically, yeah, so there is a code quality check actually that will point you whether you're on the right track or not. There's something that you need to work on. Coaches are there to support as well, so we're always there to make sure you can reach out to any of us during the core hours for like coaching questions, 9:30 to 12, and we're really happy to help you at any point of your process, pretty much from the pre-course until the very end of the course and even farther.
Cool, thanks guys. So just as a heads up to everyone who's still on the call, we'll be closing the session shortly. So if you do have a question, if you can submit it now, and I'll just work through the ones that we have here. Don't want to keep anyone too long. The whole recording of the event will also be listed on our YouTube channel as well as Facebook. So if you want to kind of go back and double check any details, they'll all be on there. Cool. So final few questions. Okay, so they missed the details about the core hours of the course. Could we repeat it? Yes, I'll do a kind of condensed version, and Josue, please correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, there are some main hours where workshops happen, and you're also assigned a pair partner. So obviously, during the time you're assigned your pair partner, you need to be available to work with them. And aside from that, the course is structured into the two halves that we discussed earlier. So kind of the initial phase working more in pairs, and then the second half the course where it's more project based. Is there anything glaring that I've missed out there at all?
Yeah, well, so basically it's a course where you have to devote like a lot of time. It's a full-time course. So if you're not really sure about the hours that you're gonna be available, it can be tricky, but the core hours are roughly 9:30 to 6, something like that. So these are the times that we normally expect everyone to be available. If there's any reason you're not sure about the times, you want to discuss that, you can always drop an email to us and we can discuss your specific situation. We'll be happy to help.
Cool, thank you. Sorry, my internet is being a bit dodgy, so hopefully I don't drop out before the end. Cool, thank you, Josue. So next question is from Jack asking if we've got a more detailed syllabus available. I don't know if you've seen the one in our FAQ, perhaps that's where you've got it. In the follow-up, I'll include the link to that. Another really good place for finding about more kind of like in-depth ins and outs of the course is actually on our blog. A lot of our students do weekly blogging. So if you go to just the Makers website, click the blog tab, and then either kind of like look at the ones that are listed on that front page, or click on the student stories tab. There's a guy called Henry Cooksley. When he was on the course, he like if you search his name, his blogs will come up. He did really detailed blogs of what each week looked like. And there's also a couple of current students who have been doing some really good weekly blogs, which will also hopefully give you a bit more of a sense of not like just the course content, but you know, how people feel going through the course, like, how you might feel once you're learning new things, and kind of help prepare you for that. So that's definitely where I'd point you in the first instance. Hopefully they'll be helpful for you. Cool. Okay, so Rachel, the next one's another deadline asking about the January course.
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in January, you should be sort of applying now or over the next few weeks. For January, even if you haven't sort of done any coding before, it means that we can sort of support you with the resources, invite you to events and workshops that are going to be able to help. So definitely in the next 2 weeks, we'll be interviewing and doing the pairing sessions before the 18th of December. So I guess work back from that date. So yeah, pretty soon, I would say.
Get them in when you can. Cool. Okay, so we've got the last two. I'm glad this one's come up actually. So they're asking if someone has social anxiety, will group learning be difficult for them? So there's a couple of really kind of like important things to mention with this one. I think firstly with remote learning, I think we've got a video on YouTube, which I'll include if I can find the right one, but one of our students discusses how she faced this problem, but learning from home in her own environment actually kind of helped to alleviate this a lot, because there's not the pressure of going into a physical big group. You're still kind of like in your own safe space at home. So I think currently it's actually set up quite nicely for if you do suffer with any of those kind of issues. As well as that, we have to mention Dana, who is one of our coaches. She, sorry, her role is she's a holistic coach, so she's completely in charge of looking after student well-being. If you have any kind of problems like related to the course, but anything kind of external as well, she will run one-to-one sessions on how to cope with that. She's kind of a fully trained coach in that respect. And she also runs a whole emotional intelligence curriculum. And that's all about kind of like getting to know your working style better, but also understanding other people's working styles. So when you do get to the project section of the course, where you will be working more like in kind of like slightly bigger groups, through kind of getting that education through the course, it really helps to alleviate some of the pressure that would have kind of possibly come up if you were facing that situation without that extra curriculum. So yeah, there's some again, really great blog posts about what Dana does, but yeah, genuinely it's a huge part of the course, and I know that a lot of students have found it helpful. Is there anything else that's kind of worth mentioning that I've missed for that question at all?
So just to add, as part of the course, I mean, We Are Makers promote like a very open space for everyone to share their feelings. That usually helps. For everyone is willing, like, oh, it's open, or I've seen that as a student, now as a coach, that people are willing to share how they feel and that how they're feeling at any given point, and they're given the opportunity, and the whole space is open, and the environment is, let's say, it fosters that actually students feel free to share that. And that's also something that I found myself really helpful when I was a student, and now as a coach I keep observing that. So that's one of the pillars of Makers, making sure everyone is feeling safe and in the best of the conditions to learn.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, and please don't let that be something that that holds you back from applying. Cool, so we've got the last one to finish off, and it's for you, Rachel. So they're asking if it's difficult to do the pre-course whilst in full-time employment.
I would say yes, as from our perspective, we would suggest only working sort of part-time during the pre-course, just because you are having to put sort of 20 to 25 hours in per week. And for some people, it might take a bit longer, it might take a bit less, but it's really hard for us to say on like each person. So that's why we wouldn't suggest trying to work full-time. Some people have in the past worked full-time and they've completed the resources, but some people also have, found themselves in a situation where it's become too much and they haven't managed to complete the resources. So yeah, definitely our recommendation would be to try and work part-time, or actually see it as a 4-month course and dedicate just full-time even during the pre-course. So I think lots of people at the moment are just dedicating full-time to the pre-course as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's everything. I think, as Rachel said, it's we only advise that because we're kind of that's the best way for applicants to do well. So yeah, so that's brought us to the end of our questions today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully that's been really informative. I've dropped a couple of links in the chat if you want to grab those before exiting. But like I said, hopefully the follow-up information will have anything else that you've missed. Cool, that's everything from us. So thank you, Josue and Rachel, for joining. And yeah, have a lovely weekend. All right, bye everybody.